Part 1. Scene: the cabin at Lake Norman. The December air was bitterly cold, each breath stinging my lungs like tiny needles of ice. Standing alone on the porch of our family's cabin at Lake Norman, I stared blankly at the brass key resting in my younger brother's palm. Ryan's face was flushed with surprise, his lips twitching uncertainly between joy and embarrassment. Mom's eyes danced nervously between us, her gentle hand patting Ryan's shoulder as if reassuring him that the awkwardness would pass. Dad cleared his throat, visibly uncomfortable, before uttering the phrase that would haunt me for nights to come. "Someday you'll understand, Madison." Understand? How could I possibly understand this? That brass key wasn't just any object. It was the heartbeat of our family, the legacy of countless Christmases spent laughing by the fire, the warm summer nights catching fireflies beneath North Carolina's velvet sky. That key represented more than a piece of property. It represented every tender memory, every shared moment of childhood that I'd fought so hard to preserve. Yet, standing there, I felt invisible. My parents' smiles, directed towards Ryan, felt like cruel daggers twisting slowly into my chest. I stepped back involuntarily, clutching the envelope hidden within my coat. A letter that contained my secret sacrifice, the gift of safety and freedom from debt for the home we loved. But now that secret was a burden rather than a joy. Because in the same instant that I'd intended to give them peace, my parents had chosen Ryan as the guardian of our family's future. Have you ever experienced the agony of invisibility in your own family? The painful realization that your sacrifices, no matter how profound, somehow count less? Let me know in the comments. Your honesty might just comfort someone else tonight. Welcome to Family Revenge Files. My name is Madison Carter, and this is a place where we bravely uncover painful family truths. Not to hurt, but to heal. If you believe truth can be the first step towards redemption, subscribe now. The story unfolding tonight is one that I wish I never had to live, but now that I have, I'm inviting you along. Hit subscribe, and together we'll rewrite legacies and reclaim dignity. As Ryan smiled hesitantly, I turned away, hiding the storm within me. Memories flooded back, bitterly sweet and vivid. Christmases decades earlier, when Ryan and I were children chasing each other around the very porch on which we stood, our laughter echoing over the frozen lake. Ryan, barely 5 years old, running to me after tripping and falling, trusting that I, his big sister, would fix everything. Even then, my role had been clear: Madison, the protector, the responsible one, the one who cleaned wounds and dried tears. But who was there now to dry mine? I walked numbly toward my father's old truck parked at the edge of the driveway, stepping carefully over ice-crusted snow. I needed distance, quiet. Sliding behind the wheel, I stared out at the scene framed by the windshield. Mom was hugging Ryan warmly, Dad laughing softly at something my brother said. In that silent, frozen moment, my heart fractured. For the first time, I questioned whether loyalty to family had betrayed my loyalty to myself. Just weeks earlier, I discovered the cabin had been secretly refinanced by my parents. The bank had sent foreclosure notices that my father had hidden carefully beneath stacks of unread mail. My parents, drowning silently under medical bills and Ryan's endless startup dreams, had mortgaged our beloved cabin, the one place I'd always thought would be safe. Without hesitation, I'd quietly liquidated my own retirement savings, wiring every cent necessary to save the cabin. It was meant to be a Christmas miracle, a gift that would relieve their silent pain. But tonight had revealed another layer. My family's silence extended deeper than I ever imagined. They'd pledged this cabin yet again, this time to investors backing Ryan's failing business. Investors who saw our sacred home as collateral, not legacy. I gripped the steering wheel, my breath fogging in quick, uneven bursts. The envelope containing the satisfaction of mortgage letter felt suddenly heavier, the paper's sharp edges pressing cruelly into my skin. Why had I chosen secrecy? Perhaps foolishly, I'd hoped my parents would see me clearly for once, would understand that my silence was love, that my sacrifice was proof I'd always put family first. But in reality, my silence had been a mistake, a costly gamble I now bitterly regretted. Have you ever kept a secret from someone you loved, thinking it was for their own good, only to see it unravel disastrously? Share your story below. Let's face these shadows together so others might step into the light. Just then, my phone buzzed violently. A text from Dawn, my best friend who'd been my confidante throughout this chaos. Her message was simple, pointed: Maddie, need extraction. Extraction or confrontation. Two paths suddenly became clear beneath the swirling storm of hurt. I could drive away, leave them to their choices, and regroup later. Or I could march back inside, slam that letter down, and shatter the fragile illusion of harmony my parents were desperately clinging to. My eyes darted between the cabin door and the road ahead. The letter felt like an incendiary device in my hands, waiting for the spark of my decision. I closed my eyes, trying to breathe through the panic. I knew whichever choice I made tonight, nothing would ever be the same again. Before I share the choice I made, I need you to answer honestly. If you stood in my shoes, what would you do? Would you march back inside, confront everyone with the truth immediately, even if it meant permanent scars and broken family ties? B. Drive away. Preserve peace for now and quietly find another way to fix the damage later? I ask because your choice matters, not just to me, but to everyone watching who's trapped in their own silent storms. Comment below, choose A or B, and explain why. I promise I'll read every response, because sometimes clarity from strangers is what finally lights our path home. If you want to know what choice I made, hit that subscribe button right now. Your support gives us the courage to keep going, to uncover truth and reclaim what's ours. Because, trust me, this storm is just beginning, and the winds of truth are going to blow harder before they calm. Subscribe, comment your choice, and stay tuned. The path forward is complicated, heartbreaking, and raw. But one thing I've learned already, even when secrets threaten to tear us apart, transparency can become our strongest bridge back to each other. I took a deep breath, feeling the cold seep into my bones, then placed my trembling hand on the truck's door handle. Whatever came next, I knew one thing with perfect clarity: I would no longer stay silent. Part 20: Secrets beneath the surface. My fingers trembled slightly on the truck's door handle, frozen halfway between staying and going. Snowflakes brushed the windshield softly, melting as quickly as they touched the glass. I shut my eyes tightly, fighting to steady my breathing. Behind me, laughter drifted faintly through the cabin walls, a gentle, haunting reminder of what I was about to disrupt. My phone buzzed again. Dawn was persistent, a good friend who knew how badly silence could fester into something toxic. Her text simply read, "Choose your battle." But choose it quickly, she was right. Silence had become my worst enemy, a habit formed from years of keeping the peace. I'd always believed that burying pain deep enough might eventually suffocate it. But pain, I now realized, thrived in darkness. Taking a deep breath, I pushed open the truck door. The frigid night air washed over me, sharpening my resolve. Each step toward the cabin felt heavier than the last, my boots crunching decisively on the frozen ground. When I stepped back into the warm glow of the living room, conversation halted abruptly. Dad looked startled, Mom tense, Ryan wary. My return was clearly unexpected. I stood in the doorway, framed by winter's chill, holding the envelope that suddenly felt like it weighed 100 pounds. "I need you all to listen," I said clearly, my voice surprising me with its steadiness. Ryan's brow furrowed. Mom's eyes widened slightly. "What's going on, Maddie?" Dad's tone was gentle but cautious. I took a step forward, placing the envelope deliberately on the coffee table. 5 weeks ago, I discovered the cabin was set for foreclosure. I found the notices you hid away, Dad. Notices of debt you kept secret from us all. My voice trembled slightly, but I continued. And instead of confronting you or letting it destroy our family Christmas, I chose to handle it quietly. Mom's mouth opened slightly in shock, her eyes darting to my father, whose face had grown pale. "How did you?" Dad began, his voice trailing off weakly. "I used my retirement savings, Dad, every cent, because I believed in this place, this family." My voice caught. "I paid off the mortgage. I cleared the lion. This cabin was safe, completely free." Ryan sank onto the couch, his expression unreadable but clearly troubled. My parents remained frozen, barely breathing. "Madison," my mother whispered, her voice hoarse, tears forming at the edges of her eyes. "Why didn't you tell us?" Dad finally asked, his voice quiet, almost broken. I exhaled slowly, feeling tears of frustration and sorrow prickling behind my eyes. "Because I thought it would be a gift," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I thought surprising you with relief would feel like Christmas, like healing. But I didn't know you had already mortgaged it again. This time for Ryan's business. Now, it's a bigger mess than before. Ryan's head jerked up suddenly. What do you mean mortgaged again? My father's eyes flickered toward the floor, shameful and evasive. We needed money. Medical bills were rising faster than we could handle, and Ryan's investors required collateral for the next funding round. We figured it was temporary, just a bridge. Temporary, I echoed, incredulous. You risked our entire family legacy without even telling us, without asking if we agreed. You made us complicit without our consent. The room was silent, save for the crackle of the dying fire. Mom clasped her hands nervously, tears silently tracing down her cheeks. Ryan's voice cracked as he spoke. How bad is it? The investors wired $50,000 yesterday. Dad admitted softly. With the cabin as collateral. Ryan exhaled sharply, a sound of disbelief. He leaned forward, eyes wide and panicked. The lien is invalid if Madison's already cleared it, Dad. That means legally, we misrepresented the collateral. They could sue us. They could bankrupt us. I sank slowly onto a chair, the weight of our new reality settling onto my shoulders. This is why transparency matters, I whispered, exhaustion deepening my voice. Secrets aren't shields, they're ticking time bombs. Have you ever witnessed a family secret explode in a way no one expected, causing irreversible damage? Comment. Yes, if you've experienced this, or not yet if you've been lucky. Your honesty might save someone else from making our mistakes. Ryan stood abruptly, pacing the room. His expression shifted from panic to anger. I never would have taken that money if I'd known. I trusted you, Dad. I trusted your advice blindly. Dad reached out weakly, looking older, smaller than I'd ever seen. I thought I was protecting everyone. You were protecting pride. I interrupted gently but firmly. Yours, mine, Ryan's. But pride blinds us. It makes us think silence is strength when silence is actually the weakest foundation we could build on. Ryan ran a shaking hand through his hair. We need to tell the investors the truth immediately. We have to fix this. But how? Mom whispered, desperation edging her voice. I met my brother's eyes steadily, seeing, perhaps for the first time, not my irresponsible sibling but a partner in crisis. Together. I answered simply. Why handle it together? Dawn, who had quietly entered during the confrontation, cleared her throat gently. If I might suggest, she said calmly, stepping forward, why don't you contact the investors first thing tomorrow, transparently explain what happened, and propose a new plan, one that protects their interests without losing family control. Ryan exhaled deeply, nodding slowly. She's right. We have to control the narrative before this becomes a full-blown disaster. It's already a disaster? Dad murmured, regret shadowing his eyes. Maybe, I conceded, but disasters can be managed. Lies can't. From this moment forward, no more secrets. Everything out in the open. Dad sighed, his eyes damp. Madison, I'm so sorry? Sorry doesn't erase the damage. I responded softly, meeting his gaze directly, but honesty can start to heal it. If you were betrayed by someone you loved deeply, could honesty repair your trust? Or is trust irreparable once broken? Let us know your thoughts below. Your insights guide us toward our own healing. Slowly, deliberately, I lifted the mortgage satisfaction letter from the table and placed it back in my father's hands. This belongs to all of us now. It's not a secret anymore, and neither are we. Dawn softly placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder, silently offering strength. The silence now felt different, cleaner somehow, less heavy with hidden pain. I looked around the room, realizing our family's foundations had just been violently shaken. But perhaps now we could rebuild more honestly, more solidly. The past few minutes had been brutal, raw, painful, but necessary. Like resetting a bone, agony had to precede healing. I turned slowly toward the camera, addressing the thousands of viewers I knew would soon hear our story. Before we continue, please take a moment and subscribe if you haven't already. Your support helps us face tomorrow, helps us share the courage we've found in honesty. And please, tell us your own story in the comments. Together, we might discover strength we never knew existed. Ryan, who'd been pacing restlessly, stopped and stood beside me, his presence now oddly comforting. Whatever comes next, he said quietly. We face it united. Yes, I agreed softly. United and transparent no matter how painful. Because the truth, I realized in that quiet moment, was more powerful than any secret we'd ever hidden. Part 30 Christmas Conflict. Sunrise came quietly over Lake Norman, casting long ribbons of pale pink and golden light across the icy waters. I'd spent the rest of that sleepless night on the worn couch in the living room, wrapped in an old quilt, staring at the fading embers of the fireplace. My family's revelations had left an emotional exhaustion, heavier than any physical fatigue. The previous night's storm of truth still lingered, raw and unresolved. Yet as morning arrived, reality pressed urgently against my consciousness. The investors' money had been transferred. We were on the brink of a disaster far bigger than personal hurt feelings. A crisis that could engulf our home, our legacy, and our future. Ryan entered the room cautiously holding 2 cups of coffee. His eyes met mine, hesitant yet sincere. "Thought you might need this," he said quietly, handing me a mug. "It's a peace offering, at least." I took it gratefully, feeling the warmth seep into my cold fingertips. "Thanks, Ryan." He sat heavily in the chair opposite me, his face etched with genuine regret. "Madison, I never wanted any of this. You know I never meant to hurt you." I exhaled slowly. "I know. But sometimes intention doesn't erase the damage caused." He nodded, eyes lowered. Silence stretched between us, filled with unsaid apologies and mutual hurt. Finally, he broke it gently. "How did we get here, Maddie? We used to trust each other implicitly." My heart ached at the sincerity in his voice. Suddenly, memories flooded vividly, drawn up by the rawness of the night before. I remembered a Christmas decades earlier. Ryan just 6, tiny and vulnerable, clutching my hand as we raced across the ice-covered yard, laughing breathlessly, confident that the world was safe because we had each other. Where had that trust gone? Maybe trust doesn't vanish suddenly. I whispered softly, almost to myself. Maybe it wears away slowly, one tiny secret at a time. Ryan's voice tightened. "We've both been keeping secrets, haven't we? You with the mortgage, me with the investors. Trying to protect each other, but really just hurting ourselves." He was right. Our family had built a fragile fortress around silence, believing it could shield us. Now we stood amid ruins, realizing we'd used secrecy like bricks without mortar, stacked high but doomed to crumble. We were interrupted by footsteps descending the stairs. Dad entered quietly, followed closely by Mom, whose tired eyes suggested she'd spent as restless a night as I had. They glanced at us warily, clearly uncertain about the fragile peace Ryan and I had just begun to rebuild. Dad cleared his throat softly. "We need to talk about the investors immediately. They deserve to know the truth before it spirals beyond control." Ryan nodded solemnly. "I'll call them, but we need a clear strategy first. Madison and I need to agree exactly what we're going to say." "Transparency?" I interjected firmly. "We give them full honesty. Nothing hidden, nothing omitted." Mom's eyes widened with worry. "Will that be enough?" "Maybe not," I admitted. "But dishonesty guarantees disaster. Honesty at least offers hope." Dad nodded solemnly. "I'll prepare any paperwork we need. Whatever happens, we face this together." We moved quietly to the dining table, papers spread between us. Dawn, who had stayed overnight in the guest room, joined us silently, offering reassuring smiles. With pen and paper, we mapped our message carefully: honesty without weakness, accountability without fear. The moment felt surreal yet necessary. The family that had crumbled last night was now attempting to rebuild itself through truth, piece by painstaking piece. I glanced at my phone, noticing dozens of notifications suddenly filling the screen. Curious, I clicked a link that Dawn quietly passed to me. My heart sank. Overnight, someone, a distant cousin who'd attended our Christmas gathering, had recorded the entire confrontation from outside the window and uploaded a clip to TikTok. It had already reached nearly 500,000 views. My stomach clenched in dread as I read the heated comments. Support and criticism intertwining chaotically. Ryan leaned closer, seeing my distress. His face paled as he took in the screen's chaos. "We've gone viral," he whispered. Dad rubbed his eyes warily, looking suddenly older. "Transparency chose us faster than we chose it. Then we own it." I replied firmly, forcing strength into my voice. "We control the narrative before the narrative controls us." Ryan nodded slowly, determination replacing fear. Let's record a message. Right now. Before this escalates. Minutes later, we stood before Dawn's camera, nerves taut but resolve steady. Ryan and I spoke side by side, our differences momentarily forgotten as we openly admitted our mistakes, shared our fears, and asked the community watching to stand by us, to learn from us. When we finished, Ryan paused, glancing at me hesitantly before speaking directly to the camera. Before we face investors, we need your advice, he said. If your family's secrets suddenly became public, would you hide away in shame, or face them openly to heal? Tell us below, and help us find our courage. As Dawn stopped filming, we sat in silence, realizing our family drama had transformed overnight into a public conversation. It was frightening yet liberating, vulnerability shifting from weakness into something powerful, shared strength. Later that morning, we dialed the investors' conference number with trembling fingers. The phone rang twice before a crisp voice answered, curt and businesslike. Ryan, voice carefully steady, laid out our truth in full detail. He acknowledged our mistakes, outlined our corrective plan, and offered them transparency as collateral, something perhaps more valuable than property. The investor paused for a long, uncomfortable moment. Transparency is admirable, Mr. Carter, but costly. Can you guarantee this transparency moving forward? Ryan glanced at me briefly before answering clearly. Yes, we can. Transparency is now non-negotiable. The voice on the other end softened slightly, a hint of respect evident beneath the formal tone. We'll need written assurances and immediate action plans. But you've earned the chance to prove yourselves. We exhaled collectively as the call ended, relief washing over us. But we knew the hardest work was still ahead. Ryan turned to me quietly. I never realized the price of truth until now. It's high. I agreed softly. But lies always cost more in the end. Have you ever faced a situation where honesty was incredibly costly, but still necessary? Did you pay that price? Or choose silence instead? Tell us your choice below. Your story might strengthen someone who needs courage tonight. The afternoon unfolded in organized chaos. Neighbors who'd watched the viral video arrived, offering help and comfort. Local news requested interviews, but we gently declined, preferring to keep our stories' control firmly in hand. Every moment felt surreal, strangers becoming allies, secrecy becoming communal healing. Late evening found me alone on the dock, staring out over Lake Norman as twilight painted delicate shades of lavender and orange. Ryan joined me silently, sitting beside me, staring out at the still waters. Do you think our family can survive this? He asked quietly. Yes, I answered firmly, meaning it deeply for the first time, not despite our honesty, but because of it. The day had been brutally difficult, our emotions raw, yet we had emerged stronger, clearer, and more united than before. Truth, I realized, wasn't just necessary. It was healing. If you believe honesty can mend even the deepest fractures, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. Your support means we continue sharing the power of openness, courage, and family. Part 40 Midnight Revelation. The following days were an exhausting blur of paperwork, phone calls, and emotional recalibrations. Yet beneath it all lingered the uncomfortable sense that despite our newfound transparency, some fractures in our family had merely been painted over, not fully repaired. The truth had set us on a path forward, but the pain of betrayal still simmered just beneath the surface. Late one night, unable to sleep, I wandered down to the lakeshore, drawn by the silent beauty of Lake Norman beneath a luminous winter moon. Tiny flecks of silver danced on the water, like scattered fragments of starlight. It was breathtakingly peaceful, an ironic contrast to the turmoil within my heart. I heard soft footsteps crunching through the snow behind me. Turning, I saw my mother approaching, wrapped in a heavy shawl, her face gentle yet burdened. Couldn't sleep either, she asked softly, joining me at the water's edge. Too many thoughts? I admitted quietly. I can't stop replaying everything. She nodded, sighing deeply. Neither can I. The guilt is overwhelming. We failed you, Madison. I met her gaze, feeling a pang of sorrow for the wariness etched deeply on her familiar face. You thought you were protecting us? Maybe, she admitted, her voice shaking slightly. But we were really protecting ourselves from our own shame. Shame? I echoed, surprised. Mom, I don't understand. She hesitated, eyes lowered to the snowy ground as she confessed something I never anticipated. Your father and I weren't just hiding debt. We were hiding our failures, our fears of judgment, of not living up to expectations. We feared you and Ryan would see us differently if you knew we'd mismanaged things so badly. The honesty struck me deeply, opening a new dimension of compassion alongside lingering resentment. We're all flawed, Mom? I whispered gently, but hiding flaws only magnifies them. She nodded slowly, clearly absorbing this truth. Your courage has taught me more than you realize. Transparency isn't easy, but it's better than the agony of secrets. We stood quietly for a long moment, the moon illuminating shared understanding. Yet I sensed a hesitation in her silence, as though she had one more secret still clinging to the edges of her heart. Mom, I pressed gently. Is there something else? She inhaled sharply, eyes filled with regretful determination. Yes, there's one more thing you don't know, Madison. Something your father and I discovered just last night. I stiffened, dread returning instantly. Tell me. She turned to face me, eyes damp with remorse. When your father mortgaged the cabin the second time, he didn't just sign over the cabin. He signed over additional equity, promising to sell a portion of the land outright if Ryan's business failed to secure full funding. The investors now have rights beyond just a lion. They have legal rights to force a sale of part of our family property if we default on repayment. My heart froze. The peaceful night suddenly shattered into shards of panic. Are you serious? Why didn't he tell me this earlier? Hay only remembered last night. She explained weakly, tears spilling quietly onto her cheeks. It was buried deep in the fine print, and he'd been so overwhelmed with the foreclosure he missed it. Madison, the investors have grounds to initiate a forced sale immediately. We could lose half our land outright. The revelation crashed through me, devastatingly heavy. Every sacrifice I'd made, every ounce of honesty and vulnerability, had it all been for nothing? Anger surged inside me, hot and immediate. Why did he hide this? Again? I demanded, voice trembling. Fear, she whispered. Fear. My phone buzzed suddenly, interrupting the agonizing silence. It was Ryan, texting urgently from inside the house. Investors just emailed. Emergency video call requested. Nanabalus. The walk back to the cabin felt impossibly long. My mind raced chaotically, confusion and fury tangling tightly together. Entering the house, I saw my father seated at the table, Ryan pale beside him, laptop open and waiting. Dawn stood quietly to the side, her presence supportive but solemn. They're waiting, Ryan said softly, clearly distressed. I sat, hands shaking as the investors' faces appeared on screen, expressions tense and unforgiving. The lead investor spoke first, voice sharp. We've reviewed the full terms again. Given the misrepresentations, we're inclined to immediately exercise our legal rights. That means selling half your property immediately to recoup losses. My breath halted, the weight of devastation pressing against my chest. Ryan visibly recoiled in horror, panic streaking across his face. My father looked shattered, head lowered, finally fully defeated by his choices. Yet in that darkest moment, anger gave way to cold clarity. My voice emerged steady, defiant. You have every right legally, yes. But morally, ethically. You'll destroy a family already trying desperately to rebuild. Surely you see the human cost here. The investors hesitated, visibly uncomfortable yet unmoved. Business isn't sentimental, Miss Carter. We're investors, not philanthropists. The choice before me crystallized abruptly, razor sharp and brutal. I could fight this publicly, release everything to our channel. Every email, document, conversation. Transparency could turn public opinion powerfully in our favor, pressuring the investors into retreat. But the backlash could permanently fracture our family's dignity, privacy, and relationships, turning personal trauma into spectacle. Or I could quietly negotiate behind closed doors, minimizing public drama, potentially saving familial dignity, but possibly sacrificing our family land to financial predators. This moment would define our future. Choose transparency and war openly, or choose privacy and gamble quietly behind closed doors. I couldn't delay, the investors' patience had worn thin. This was my decision. No time for consultation, no second chances. Now I ask you watching this, truly consider what you do. A. Would you publicly fight back, revealing everything openly to leverage transparency and public pressure, risking humiliation and permanent family wounds? B. Or would you quietly negotiate privately, protecting your family's dignity but risking greater financial loss and injustice? This choice is critical. It could redefine not just our family, but families watching who struggle similarly. Comment A or B right now and explain why. Your insight matters profoundly tonight. Whatever path I choose, the cost will be immense, the consequences lasting. But your voices might guide us, toward clarity. Before we reveal the outcome, subscribe now if you believe deeply in the power of honesty, vulnerability, and shared courage. Your subscription ensures we keep shining light into the darkest corners. Together, tonight, transparency faces its ultimate test. My decision awaits your voice. Part 50 Viral Impact. I hardly slept that night, my mind racing endlessly with dread, anxiety, and unresolved anger. When dawn finally seeped through the curtains, bringing a pale, exhausted light, I checked my phone. The response from our viewers was overwhelming, thousands of comments flooding in. People passionately debated transparency versus privacy, some begging me to fight publicly, others urging quiet negotiation to preserve family dignity. Before I could fully process the reaction, Dawn knocked gently on my bedroom door, pushing it slightly open. "You should probably see this," she murmured softly, concern etched in her eyes. I followed her downstairs to find Ryan hunched over his laptop, face pale, eyes wide in disbelief. "What's going on?" I asked hesitantly, sensing further trouble. Ryan glanced up, visibly shaken. "We're trending, Madison. That video of our confrontation, it's completely exploded. Over 2 million views overnight, comments exploding. Hashtags going viral, fan cabin gate, fair justice for Madison, it's everywhere." I sank into a chair, stunned. The realization crashed over me: our family's deepest trauma was now entertainment, public spectacle. "Oh my God," I whispered. "This is spiraling out of control." Ryan looked at me, guilt shadowing his expression. "The investors emailed again this morning, too. They're furious. They're threatening immediate legal action because of the attention. They think we orchestrated this to pressure them." My stomach twisted painfully. This wasn't planned. It was an honest cry for help. "I know," Ryan said softly. "But perception matters more than intention right now, Madison. We need to regain control quickly." My father entered quietly, looking older and warier than ever, yet somehow calmer. "Transparency chose us again," he said quietly, resignation mingling with regret. "But perhaps it's for the best. Truth can't hide in shadows." I met his gaze firmly. "If we harness this attention positively, maybe we can salvage something." Dawn spoke up gently, but with confidence. "You should address your viewers immediately. Own this narrative before it owns you." Within minutes, we'd set up the camera again, our nerves raw but our message unified. Standing shoulder to shoulder with Ryan, facing the lens, I drew a shaky breath. To everyone watching, we never intended our personal crisis to go viral. But now that it has, we're choosing to stand openly and face it. Your voices matter greatly. We're humbled by your support and deeply moved by your honesty. I paused briefly, collecting myself. "Tell us right now, how would you handle it if your family crisis suddenly went viral? Would you run from the spotlight or embrace it to heal openly? Leave your thoughts below. Your wisdom guides us." As we stopped recording, my phone buzzed again. Local news had picked up the story, requesting interviews. Journalists emailed incessantly, their messages multiplying every minute. It was overwhelming yet strangely empowering. Our story was resonating deeply, reaching beyond mere family drama into universal conversations about honesty, betrayal, and redemption. That afternoon, Dawn helped us craft carefully worded public statements for the investors, social media, and news outlets. We explicitly apologized for unintended harm yet stood resolutely firm about our commitment to transparency and ethics. Despite these efforts, tension simmered. Our family cabin became a surreal hive of activity, reporters hovering at the edges of our property, curious neighbors dropping off casseroles and cookies along with whispered support or judgmental looks. Privacy vanished entirely, replaced by a constant hum of public scrutiny. Late that evening, as I tried unsuccessfully to calm my nerves by reorganizing kitchen cupboards, Ryan approached quietly. His face was drawn, eyes earnest. "Madison, there's something else," he began hesitantly. I tensed, wary of more bad news. What now? He exhaled slowly, clearly troubled. One of the investors just privately messaged me. She wants a confidential meeting. No cameras, no audience. Just the three of us. My pulse quickened. Did she say why? Ryan shook his head slowly. She just said she might have a solution that avoids the courts. But it requires secrecy. She says transparency has limits, and some conversations can't happen publicly. I felt torn, anxiety knotting sharply in my chest. Everything we'd fought for had been based on transparency. Now secrecy reappeared, enticing yet dangerous. This feels like a trap, I admitted quietly, but it also feels like our last lifeline. Ryan met my gaze seriously. I trust your judgment, Madison. Whatever you decide, I'll support it. Standing in the silent kitchen, I felt deeply conflicted. Transparency had become my mantra, my shield. Yet here I stood, confronted again by secrecy, its promises seductive yet shadowed. I turned back to Ryan firmly. Arrange the meeting. But we record everything privately for our own protection. We'll keep the footage locked safely away, just in case. He nodded solemnly. Agreed. The secret meeting took place the next evening, away from prying eyes, in a private conference room downtown. The investor, a poised woman named Eleanor, greeted us politely but firmly, clearly accustomed to power. I understand transparency has become your brand, she began coolly, but certain negotiations demand discretion. Discretion or secrecy? I challenged softly, holding her gaze steadily. She smiled slightly, eyes sharp yet appreciative. Discretion. The deal I propose will end your crisis immediately, but it requires immediate acceptance and total silence. What exactly are you offering? Ryan asked cautiously. She leaned forward slightly, her voice quiet yet firm. We'll cancel the lion and forgive the entire debt, under one condition: you stop publicly discussing our involvement. Immediately. You tell the world we resolve things amicably, privately, and without further details. Complete confidentiality. My pulse raced wildly, caught between relief and caution. So, we'd lie publicly after pledging transparency. She raised an eyebrow. Not lie, Madison, just limit details. You preserve your property and family dignity, we regain our privacy, everyone wins. Ryan glanced at me anxiously, clearly tempted by the immediate resolution. Madison, this might be our only real chance. Yet the thought of returning to secrecy felt unbearable. It was secrecy that had nearly destroyed us. Could returning to it now ever truly heal us? Was protection through silence genuinely safer than honesty's brutal yet cleansing openness? Eleanor's voice softened slightly. Transparency is admirable, but are you prepared to sacrifice your family's security just to uphold an ideal? Choose carefully, Madison. I looked between Ryan's pleading eyes and Eleanor's calculating expression. My family's future hinged on this singular decision. Honesty at painful cost or secrecy for immediate relief. What would you choose if you faced this impossible dilemma? Would you sacrifice transparency to save your family immediately, or would you risk everything to uphold your commitment to honesty? Please comment your thoughts. Your insight truly matters tonight. I knew whatever choice I made, it would echo profoundly, not just for my family, but for every family watching, desperate for guidance through their own silent storms. If you believe in standing firm, even when transparency is costly, hit subscribe and share our story. Your support is our strength. Taking a deep breath, I faced Eleanor squarely, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. I've made my choice. Part 60. The Road to Redemption. I've made my choice. I repeated, more firmly this time, my voice echoing slightly in the quiet conference room. Eleanor leaned forward expectantly. Ryan held his breath, eyes anxious, hopeful. The air felt charged with anticipation, every decision now irrevocable, every consequence etched permanently into our future. I appreciate your offer, I began slowly, meeting Eleanor's sharp gaze directly, but secrecy, no matter how appealing or convenient, is exactly what got us into this mess. I can't choose silence again. My family has learned painfully that honesty, however costly, is the only path forward. Ryan exhaled slowly, disappointment shadowing his expression. Eleanor's eyes narrowed briefly, measuring my resolve. You realize what you're risking, she said evenly, a subtle warning embedded in her tone. I do, I replied firmly, but I've also discovered the strength transparency grants us. If we fall honestly, But if we rise, it'll be through truth. That matters more to me now than immediate safety. She studied me silently for a long moment, then offered a small, grudging smile. Brave, Madison. Foolishly brave, perhaps, but commendable. The meeting ended shortly after, leaving us uncertain yet strangely unburdened. Walking into the night air, Ryan sighed deeply, clearly conflicted yet respectful of my choice. "Do you really think honesty alone can protect us, Madison?" he asked quietly, uncertainty coloring his voice. "I don't know," I admitted softly, "but dishonesty can't protect anyone. If we rebuild, it has to be on a foundation stronger than secrets." The following weeks tested my resolve like never before. Lawyers sent ominous letters, investors threatened lawsuits publicly. Yet something remarkable began happening. Our viewers, having followed our journey openly, began rallying fiercely behind us. Donations poured in, along with letters of support, offers of free legal representation, volunteer carpenters and programmers for our intended community retreat. Transparency, rather than destroying us, had become our lifeline. One chilly evening, as I stood on the porch observing volunteers working tirelessly on the cabin's overdue renovations, a familiar voice spoke gently behind me. "You've built something extraordinary here, Madison." Turning, I saw Mrs. Eleanor Maxwell, an elderly neighbor and long-time family friend whose gentle wisdom had often guided me in childhood. Her warm smile eased the persistent anxiety I'd been carrying. "What brings you here, Mrs. Maxwell?" I asked warmly, embracing her gently. She glanced affectionately at the bustling volunteers. "Stories travel far in small towns, my dear. Yours reached me quickly." Her eyes held kindness and understanding. "I know a bit about family secrets and the cost of silence myself." She continued softly, eyes distant with memory. "My husband and I once lost nearly everything because we hid financial troubles from each other. When everything finally came crashing down, the pain wasn't from losing our home, it was from losing trust. Rebuilding trust took far longer than rebuilding our finances ever did." I absorbed her words quietly, recognizing a truth deeper than I'd fully understood. "Trust seems so fragile," I whispered, suddenly overwhelmed. "Can it ever truly heal?" "Absolutely," she replied gently. "But only when honesty becomes your family's daily practice, not a last resort." As Mrs. Maxwell walked away, leaving me thoughtfully reflective, Ryan approached hesitantly. He'd overheard everything, eyes contemplative. "Do you believe her, Madison?" he asked quietly. "Can our trust fully heal after everything?" "Only if we work at it openly every day," I answered earnestly. "Honesty can't just be a reaction to crisis. It has to be how we live, how we love." Ryan nodded slowly, visibly affected. "Then let's start now." In the following weeks, our family embraced transparency with renewed vigor. Dad openly addressed our mistakes in community meetings. Mom shared her vulnerability on camera, inspiring thousands facing similar struggles. Ryan and I, once divided by resentment, found ourselves working tirelessly side by side, planning a future rooted firmly in mutual trust. Meanwhile, construction moved rapidly forward, bolstered by community generosity. Lake Norman Code Collective emerged vividly from blueprints to reality, a thriving retreat dedicated to fostering local youth and struggling startups, embodying the values of openness, courage, and community support. Yet healing wasn't always smooth. One evening, while reviewing blueprints alone in the cabin's quiet living room, Ryan and I clashed intensely over finances. Old tensions flared dangerously, threatening our fragile harmony. "You can't micromanage everything, Madison!" Ryan snapped, frustration boiling over. "I'm not micromanaging. I'm protecting what we've rebuilt," I retorted sharply, old insecurities resurfacing painfully. We stood glaring, the room heavy with mutual hurt. But suddenly, I saw clearly the familiar trapped silence and resentment threatening our newfound openness. Drawing a shaky breath, I softened my voice. "Ryan, we're slipping again. Let's pause and talk openly, please." His shoulders relaxed slightly, tension melting slowly. "You're right," he admitted quietly, sitting heavily beside me. "I guess I'm still afraid of disappointing you again." My heart ached at his admission, recognizing my own fears mirrored within it. "And I'm afraid of trusting you fully. But fear only divides us further. Transparency means we share even our ugly truths." He sighed deeply, vulnerability returning. "Then let's never hold back again." Have you ever struggled to trust someone after deep hurt? Did honesty truly heal the relationship, or was some damage irreversible? Please share your story below. Your experience might strengthen someone else's courage tonight. Slowly, steadily, our family reclaimed openness. Difficult conversations became routine rather than rare. Trust strengthened gradually, one courageous step at a time. Volunteers and community members noticed, inspired by our evolving unity. Donations doubled, local businesses sponsored workshops eagerly. Transparency wasn't merely repairing our family, it was transforming our entire community. Finally, launch day arrived. Warm spring sunlight illuminated the cabin, beautifully renovated and bustling with enthusiastic local teens, mentors, and startup hopefuls. Cameras rolled, broadcasting live across social media, as I stood confidently beside Ryan on the porch, addressing hundreds gathered expectantly below. Transparency began for us as a painful necessity. I told them clearly, voice strong with conviction. But it's become our greatest gift. If secrets divide us, honesty unites us. Orion continued, voice steady. We can't promise perfection, but we promise openness. Lake Norman Code Collective will always embody transparency, courage, and community. A cheers erupted warmly from the crowd, applause echoing proudly across the lake. Mom and Dad stood proudly beside us, smiling warmly, healing clearly evident. If you've ever wondered if honesty is worth its price, I addressed our global viewers earnestly. Know this, it isn't just worth it, it's priceless. If you value transparency's power, please subscribe now, share this message widely. Together, let's reclaim honesty, rebuild trust, and rewrite our family legacies. Ryan smiled warmly at me, eyes sincere. Ready to trust fully again, Madison? Completely. I answered honestly, feeling peaceful strength replace lingering fears. Because, as I'd finally understood profoundly, transparency wasn't just our shield. It was our bridge, connecting our past wounds to future healing. Part 7, A New Legacy's Epilogue. 3 years later, Christmas Eve arrived gently at Lake Norman, draping a quiet layer of snow over the tranquil landscape, each snowflake like a whisper of peace settling onto our family's now thriving retreat. The cabin, once the epicenter of our deepest betrayals, stood warm and vibrant, windows glowing invitingly against the velvet December night. I paused on the front porch, breathing deeply the crisp, clean winter air. Inside, laughter echoed softly, the sound of my parents' joyful banter intertwined seamlessly with Ryan's enthusiastic storytelling. Lake Norman Code Collective had blossomed beyond our wildest dreams, transforming not only our land but our family, and more importantly, our hearts. Tonight, as I gazed at the moonlit lake, memories surfaced vividly, scenes from that fateful Christmas night when our family's hidden truths had first shattered into painful reality. Yet the sting had faded gradually over time, replaced steadily by gratitude for openness, honesty, and the healing power of forgiveness. The wounds from betrayal had transformed into something strong and resilient, scars marking wisdom rather than pain. Madison. Turning, I saw Ryan standing at the cabin's threshold, his silhouette framed by soft, warm light from within. He stepped forward, handing me a steaming mug of hot cocoa, his eyes reflecting calm contentment I'd rarely seen in him before our crisis. Feels surreal, doesn't it? He murmured gently, eyes scanning the peaceful landscape. 3 years ago, I wondered if we'd even survive as a family. I nodded, taking a slow sip, savoring warmth seeping into my bones. Sometimes it takes almost losing everything to truly appreciate what we have. Ryan exhaled quietly, thoughtful. We learned painful lessons, Madison. But I think the deepest lesson was forgiveness. Forgiving ourselves as much as forgiving each other. I smiled softly, feeling the truth in his words deeply. Forgiveness had been our hardest lesson, yet the one that brought the most profound peace. It required vulnerability, humility, a willingness to confront our flaws openly. But it had become our strongest foundation. Do you regret choosing transparency? He asked suddenly, eyes searching mine carefully. Even when it cost us so much, never. I answered immediately, sincerely. Honesty brought chaos at first. Yes, but it also brought lasting peace. Silence might have preserved appearances temporarily, but only truth healed our family genuinely. Inside, the fireplace crackled warmly, and I heard Dad laughing heartily at something Mom had whispered. My heart swelled with quiet joy, gratitude flooding my chest. 3 years ago, I'd feared losing them forever. Now our bonds were stronger precisely because they'd been tested, rebuilt intentionally, brick by painstaking brick. Ryan reached into his pocket, withdrawing a small brass key, the same one that had once symbolized our family's fracture. Now it represented healing, unity, and a commitment to honesty. He handed it to me gently, sincerity glowing in his eyes. You deserve to hold on to this now, Madison. You fought hardest for our family's truth. I closed my fingers around it gently, feeling the metal's smooth, familiar shape. But instead of the weight of betrayal it once carried, it now felt comforting, hopeful, a symbol of restored trust and renewed connection. Thank you, Ryan, I said quietly, emotion tightening my voice. For everything. We embraced warmly, all past resentments washed away by time, patience, and sincere openness. Inside, Mom's voice called happily, inviting us to join the family gathering. Come inside, you too, she laughed. It's freezing out there. Stepping back into the cabin felt like stepping into a new chapter entirely. The living room brimmed with joy, the tree glittering brightly, every ornament bearing memories old and new. Mom and Dad looked healthier, younger somehow, as though honesty had lifted years of hidden burdens from their shoulders. Dad smiled broadly, beckoning warmly. Come sit, Madison. Ryan, join us! Sitting together around the crackling fire, warmth enveloped us in gentle comfort. Dad spoke softly, his voice reflecting wisdom earned through hardship. 3 years ago, I was terrified that honesty would destroy us. He confessed openly, eyes moistening, but instead it rebuilt us. We were tested deeply, and our bonds emerged stronger than ever. Mom nodded, eyes gentle, reflecting her profound peace. Honesty, transparency. They weren't just ideals. They became lifelines guiding us out of darkness. Ryan cleared his throat quietly, eyes reflecting deep sincerity. And forgiveness. We learned forgiving others isn't weakness. It's the greatest strength we possess. Dad looked warmly at us, smiling softly. And trust, children, trust isn't given easily. But once rebuilt, it becomes unbreakable, built consciously, deliberately every single day. A comfortable silence enveloped us momentarily, each reflecting deeply. Finally, Mom glanced at me gently. Madison, what have you learned most deeply through this journey? She asked softly. I exhaled slowly, thoughtfully. I've learned honesty's cost is high, but silence costs far more. Secrets isolate us. Transparency connects us. Choosing truth openly might hurt temporarily, but it heals permanently. Dad nodded solemnly, eyes reflecting genuine pride. Beautifully said. Madison. Ryan squeezed my hand reassuringly, smiling warmly. And we've learned courage isn't fighting alone, it's embracing vulnerability together. I smiled softly, contentment filling every corner of my heart. This was what transparency had gifted us: genuine unity, profound trust, real peace. Turning gently toward the camera, knowing thousands worldwide would later see our quiet family scene, I spoke warmly, sincerely, directly to each viewer watching. 3 years ago, transparency nearly shattered us. But it became our family's greatest healing force. If you're struggling, know this deeply: secrets isolate, honesty connects. The truth will test you, yes, but it will also set you profoundly free. Ryan leaned forward earnestly, sincerity glowing clearly. If this journey resonated, please share it widely. Subscribe, join us in choosing transparency daily. Together, let's rewrite family legacies, honestly, courageously, and openly. A mom and dad nodded warmly, eyes reflecting pride, peace, and contentment. Let our family's painful lessons become your family's healing path. Dad added gently. And never underestimate forgiveness's power. Mom concluded softly. Forgiveness rebuilds even the deepest fractures. We sat quietly for a moment, absorbing warmth and genuine unity. Outside, Lake Norman's tranquil waters reflected moonlight brilliantly, serene, peaceful, hopeful. Have you faced family secrets, betrayals, or painful truths? Has transparency healed or hurt your relationships? Share your journey openly below. Your story could change someone's path tonight. If you believe honesty, courage, and forgiveness can truly rewrite legacies, subscribe now. Ring the bell to join our ongoing journey towards lasting transparency and family healing. And most importantly, thank you for sharing our struggles, our courage, and our redemption. Your support has made transparency powerful, real, and profoundly healing. From our family to yours, may truth always light your path. May forgiveness heal your deepest wounds, and may honesty always rebuild your strongest bridges. Happy holidays. And remember, always honesty isn't easy, but it's always worth the cost. Together, let's rewrite our legacies, one honest step at a time.